Hello WBSE. Today I've got something different for you. With the Chadman's approval, I'm going to be reviewing today a couple of rums that I'm quite fond of. The group obviously isn't necessarily a rum group. However, like with many things, our interests branch quite a lot, and it's quite natural that a lot of us within our love of whiskey will also drink a few other things like tequila and rum. So these are two rums that I like quite a lot. I've had both of them before, and I thought I'd give you some notes on them. The first one is Diplomatico Reserva Exclusiva. This is a Venezuelan rum. It is a blend of 80% darker rum and 20% lighter rum that is aged for up to 12 years. So that's not the minimum, but up to 12 years. There's no actual firm age statement on what it all is. The other one is a Foursquare. This is a 9-year-old port finished rum. And this is aged for 3 years in ex-bourbon casks, and then it is aged for 6 additional years in previously used port wine casks. Now, these two rums have almost nothing in common as far as taste goes. By the way, this one is from Barbados, I believe, if I recall correctly. Yeah, Barbados. Taste-wise, they're polar opposites. But I enjoy both of them for completely different reasons, and I think many of you either do or might. So we're going to taste them and see what I can tell you about these. I don't know how well you can see the color, but it's a very reddish rust colored rum. The nose on the Diplomatico is one of the most impressive rums on anything that I've ever drank. You get vanilla, a little bit of oak, things that you would expect to get out of almost anything. You get a brown sugar, but you get a pineapple note that is fairly pronounced, and there's a nuttiness to it, kind of like a hazelnut. It's one of the nuttier smelling things that I've ever drank, and the combination of the pineapple, the vanilla, and the hazelnut is absolutely, I know it sounds like it wouldn't go together, but it's absolutely fabulous. The nose is something that I have a tendency to sit and nose this for a long, long time before I ever take a sip of it, for no other reason than it is just so enjoyable. For those of you who enjoy scented candles and Scentsy and all those kinds of things and like to have a nice aroma in your house, this is something that I could walk into a house and really like just the smell of it, whether it was in whiskey or not. Trying to pick up a few more things. You get just a little bit of an alcohol smell. It's not very strong, but it is there. And there's a tiny bit of a tobacco note. On the palate, you get that hazelnut and vanilla immediately. And that gives way very quickly to spices, mostly nutmeg and cinnamon. On the latter part of the palate, there's an appearance of oak. It's very mild. It's not the kind of oakiness you would expect in a bourbon or anything like that. It's fairly subdued underneath all the sweetness. You get some brown sugar and that cane sugar type of thing. I believe they said that this is actually distilled from molasses, which is something that I can kind of understand based on the tastes. So, all in all, you've got this hazelnut, oak, vanilla, cream type of thing. There's some burnt sugar in there. And don't forget the spices, because the spice, although it's mild, carries completely over into the finish. And your finish is very much creamy and delicate with spice over the top of it. Any burn that you get is very minimal. It hits the back of your throat just a little bit when you swallow. Overall, this is velvety and silky in your mouth. It's thoroughly enjoyable. There is sugar added to this rum. And that's typical. It is very common to be adding flavors and sugars into rums. It's traditional, and it goes back to the very beginnings of rum. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just something you need to know, because some rums do it and some don't. And sometimes it can be used to cover up the taste of bad rum. All in all, this is absolutely fabulous as far as I'm concerned. It'll run you around, I believe, for most places, between about $37 and $42 a bottle. And if you want to try some rums, I think this is a must try. It's not that hard to find. I will tell you that there are several other versions of Diplomatico. And while they are good, they have an añejo that you can buy for about $18. And it's good. I have some of it sitting here that's almost empty. But I will tell you that while it's a good, nice rum, it's nothing even similar to this. It's not an advance. This isn't an advancement on the same flavor. This is a totally unique bottle that is unlike anything, even within the Diplomatico family. So if you see the 3 or 4 different bottles that you can get of Diplomatico, don't think that they all are different variations on the same theme, because they're not. I've tasted 3 different ones of them. They're all completely different. So do yourself a favor, and if you really want to taste a particular one, get that one. Don't say, I'm going to, save a little cash and get the cheaper one and see if I like it before I go to the top one, because although it's good, it's not the same thing. So tasting one of them, tasting this isn't going to tell you about the añejo, and tasting the añejo isn't going to tell you about this in any way, shape, or form. All right? So that being out of the way, this one is the Foursquare. This is the first Foursquare that I've ever had, and it is the only one I've been able to find in my area. There are a couple more that I am dying to get a taste of, but it hasn't happened. This one I found up in Manhattan, Kansas a couple of weeks ago, and it's nothing like that. Okay. So, once again, you have a slightly paler color than what the other one was. It was very red. This one is more of an orange color, a copper color. It's very much like a dark copper. It's a little bit reddish, but nothing compared to that. Which is odd, seeing as how this is the one that's port finished. And it's port finished, remember, for 6 years out of 9, so it spends a lot of time in the port barrels. On the nose, the port shines through in a huge way. While you get the underlying influence of the bourbon barrels that it was put in for the first 3 years, with the vanilla and some cinnamon and some clove, there's a rich wine-like flavor, and it doesn't taste artificial. It's completely blended in. It's obviously a result of aging and not of actual wet casking, so to speak, where it seems like with some inexpensive stuff, you get a whiskey that is so permeated with the flavor, it's almost artificial tasting, and it seems like they must have left quite a bit of liquid in the casks before they put the whiskey in it. There are some dark fruits, just a hint of dark cherry, maybe a little bit of plum. There's a nougat and a caramel smell that is very prominent, and it's very nice. It's a good nose. It's not like that. It's not as good a nose as that, I don't think. It depends on what you're looking for. This is richer, that's sweeter and more complex as far as I'm concerned. However, here's the thing about this that I have found to be very unique. Rums, although they vary quite a bit, are of a family. And you don't normally taste a rum that tastes like anything else. Just like bourbon tastes like bourbon, scotch tastes like scotch, for the most part. However, they've done something here with this long port cask and no sugar added that is unusual. And this is the most like a whiskey of any rum I've ever tasted. There may be others out there, and I'm not that experienced with rum, and I don't claim to be any kind of an expert about rum in any way. But this reminds me in many ways of scotch, both on the nose and the palate. Let's taste and see where I go from on the actual tastes. The caramel is in your face. And I don't know if it's possible, but if you've ever tasted anything that had caramel in it that also had cinnamon and clove and spices in it, that's kind of what you get here. You get this big caramel bomb, and immediately it's followed up by the typical spices that you would see within bourbon, like nutmeg and cinnamon and clove. I think there's a lot of clove that gives you a little bit of bite there. Not a burn, but a bite to the taste. The fruitiness of the port is a little bit subdued. Within that, you still get some vanilla. But the butterscotch is exceptional. You don't get the strong sugar notes that you do in bourbon or in rum. The spice, the oak hits you in the finish and late in the palate. The overall taste, it's not like a scotch, but it reminds me a lot of a scotch. It is the closest thing that I've ever seen a rum get to scotch. Both of these are incredibly different from each other, but they're both very good, and I hope this was informative. If I remember right, I paid about $45 for this one. I don't know whether that's the normal rate. That's what I found it at. It's the first time I'd ever seen it, so I snatched it. I really didn't care if that was the exact right price or not. Good night, WBSC. I hope that this was informative for you, and maybe it'll help you make a decision on whether you want to look into some rum. Have a good day.